We're live.
Okay, good morning. This is a meeting of the Senate Government Operations Committee on Friday, May 30th, the final day of this legislative session, I hope, and thus probably the final meeting of this committee this year. But we have one item to consider this morning, the OPR bill, which is also known as H-472. The House has sent back a proposal of amendment, which includes 4 instances thereof. And we're joined by,
Hey!
we're joined by our 4th member, just in time. Sorry about the tractor.
It happens. It's Vermont.
Senator Bihovsky was behind a tractor on the way over, so she's
Hopefully it wasn't in the Morse code.
So Tim Devlin, our legislative counsel, welcome. And if you could quickly go over the 4 instances of amendment from the House, we would appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me in, Chair members. Chair Caldwell and members. For the record, my name is Tim Devlin, Legislative Counsel. And let's see, the 4 instances of amendment that came over from the House essentially will introduce a small tweak to some creation of language regarding creation of a new position. We'll remove in the entirety the sections pertaining to early childhood educator licensure. It'll correct some effective dates, and then it'll require a basically a report back for some from the Secretary of State regarding sale of data. So going through this in more detail. First is, let's see, section 12, which has to do with the position appropriation and for creating the executive officer for the regulation of mental health professions. And as the language came out of this committee, and actually originally from the House, it stated the position of 1 new permanent full-time exempt officer shall be made. This will change it to the position of 1 new permanent full-time classified. The second instance of amendment, as just said, will remove sections 14, 18, which are the early childhood educator licensure provisions. Those will be removed in their entirety. The third instance of amendment will essentially renumber everything that came after those now struck sections, and will remove specific reference to the sections in the effective dates. The fourth will create that report back, and for the committee's context, if you look at the top of page 2 of your strike all amendment, the original amendment that came over from the House as well. The provision we modified, or not modified, but the provision at issue here reads as follows. The Secretary of State shall have the authority to collect and deposit into the Secretary of State service funds revenues generated from optional services offered in the normal course of business, including for one-time or periodic sales of data by subscription or other contractual basis. So now we turn to the report being offered in the 4th instance of amendment, and this will create a new section 1A titled Secretary of State Report Revenues from Sale of Data. So on or before December 1st, 2025, the Secretary of State shall submit to the House committees on energy and digital infrastructure, on government operations and military affairs, and on ways and means, and to the Senate committees on finance, on government operations, and on institutions, a written report detailing the revenues generated from optional services through sales of data as authorized pursuant to 3 VSA 118C, what I just read, including categories of data sold.
Could you give me an example of what that data might be, in case somebody on the floor says what data are?
I believe OPR came in and testified. I should say the Deputy Secretary of State came in and testified to it's a professional licensure information that's already publicly available, and I believe that's being scraped by third parties. They'll post it online of who's licensed and who isn't, who has any sort of infractions against the license or something like that.
Okay.
And so they would be essentially, as my understanding, bundling that and making it available for parties. And so this would be all the is running all the operations of Secretary of State, so the Office of Professional Regulation, also their corporate registration office, and then their elections division.
Okay. And in the first instance, as I am learning, this was intended to be a classified position originally, but was sort of, I don't want to say mislabeled, but for some reason, they used exempt. Is that correct?
Apparently, from my understanding of what the Secretary of State's office has indicated, they just like a change.
It's a what?
They would indeed like a change. I
Yeah.
think it is more accurate.
So, but technical correction though, yeah, we're getting at the same thing.
I think so.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Secretary?
So are you reporting out this? Whatever we decide to, okay, great. That was my big question.
Yeah, I don't, does anybody have any questions for Attorney Devlin or any comments?
Wondering, and you may not be able to, but I'm wondering if you have any sense of the rationale for removing the early childhood educator portion of the bill in its entirety.
I cannot speak to that.
Okay. I thought that might be the answer.
I mean, I didn't necessarily tell them to do that, but once the appropriations for that ceased to exist, it seemed like it was a probably more likely bill to pass on its own. Remember, we put that in
Yeah.
after it left the House, so it's still on the wall. We will probably take it up again next year. Probably on its face, we'll just do a bill that says early childhood education. But that was the rationale. There's no money for it anyway, so they couldn't implement anything that was in there. Might as well strip it out. And what I was told was the House wants to take it up first next year. So that's the rationale.
Yeah, I was.
Good morning, Attorney McLean.
Good morning. Sorry, I was on another
No, don't be
committee.
silly.
I ran over.
Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would just say that, I'm happy with us concurring with this, with change of amendment or whatever the correct wording is. I am sad that we took out the entirety of it, and I would have hoped we could have maybe had some incremental steps to get there in the interim before we do something. But I respect, the fact that they didn't take as much testimony as we did on this topic, and it is a substantial change. So I'm hoping that we can get some kind of commitment around them taking it up next year in earnest.
So if we had a straw poll, is everybody comfortable concurring? Okay. Anything else for either Attorney McGlynn or Attorney Devlin? No? Okay, if you'd let us stay on again still, I just want to say, since this is most likely the final meeting of this committee this year, and I'm sorry that Senator Clarkson isn't here to be with us, I express my appreciation for all of your hard work. We have divergent views of the way things are, the way things could be, the way things should be, perhaps. But I thought we worked very collaboratively, and we've always been civil with each other. I think we actually are kind of friends.
Yeah.
So my thanks to all of you for your hard work this year. And we will be returning before you know it, probably in June, but that remains to be seen, whether there's a veto session or not. I don't know. So,
Well, we appreciate you too, Brian.
well, I appreciate that. Have a great summer.